All right, what is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Mets Weekly Podcast as we are live at this very moment on YouTube and on X to recap the Mets versus Rockies series, as well as the latest news and rumors in New York Mets land. But before we get into that, I want to remind everyone to subscribe to the Mets Weekly YouTube channel for new episodes of our show that are recorded live after every single series of games during the regular season. For those of you watching or listening on playback, you want to join the conversation in the future, make sure to turn on those post notifications to know when we go live. For those of you in the chat right now, we love reading your comments, your questions, your concerns, all that great stuff regarding the team at the moment. And if you feel like you're being ignored, you're not being ignored. We're just going to star you throughout the entire show, and we'll try to pull up as many as we can to keep the flow of the conversation going. Make sure to follow Mets Weekly on X and on TikTok for my co-host Frank's instant post-game reactions after every regular season game, which are titled the Mets Frankly Postgame. For our audio listeners, make sure to follow us on all your favorite listening platforms to not miss the audio version of new episodes that go up at 9 a.m. the following day. Also, make sure to give us a 5-star review. It would be greatly appreciated. So without further ado, let's get into episode number 142 of our show. And it is just me today. You might as well see right here on your screen. For those of you on audio, no Frank, no Andrew. It is just me. It's a solo show, so most likely it won't go the full 2 hours because it's just going to be me talking the entire time. And if that's something that you don't enjoy, typically, you're out of luck this week. You're out of luck for this episode. But other than that, we're going to get into plenty in this episode, plenty to break down. And one thing that I do want to just define here, of course, is obviously the Mets with their offense, and from both sides of the ball, to be honest, of how they have been playing. It's been a little bit better in terms of the quality of wins in June. And I do want to point that out because we were talking about this a lot before June began, that, you know, a lot of the ways that they were winning were not going to be some things that can keep up. So far in June, it's looked a little bit better, and they're playing a little bit more efficient baseball. They're still rough around the edges. There still has been a lot. But again, for most of June, they have been playing teams that are out of contention. So that is something that you obviously need to take into account when you're talking about things like this. But these are teams that they do still have to beat. And you do have to be you do have to, establish the reality that these teams are not good. You're not going to be seeing them in the postseason, and they're not going to determine what goes on. But you do need to win these games. That's exactly what the Mets did in this series. They went into Colorado against a horrendous team, historically horrendous team, which rivals some of these teams from the 800s that were so awful. They went into Colorado and they swept them. They did what they needed to do. It started off a little slow in this series, and we will get into it, especially on the offensive side. But in a collaborative way, you had a lot of guys step up offensively. You had a lot of pitching that was in a environment that's usually a hitting environment, performed fairly well against a Colorado team that chases a lot of pitches and gives you a lot of free outs. They made a lot of mental mistakes, more than what the Mets have done to start off the year. So again, this was a series they had to take. There was no excuses for them taking 2 out of 3. There was no excuses for them doing anything but sweeping this series. And I don't think that that's a lot to ask, especially when it's a Colorado Rockies team that we have said you've played for 6 of the last 10 games. And also, you need to beat this team. You need to win these games. You need to stack up these wins to be put into this position, because you never know how this is going to timely line up. And how you're seeing it timely line up, you're seeing the Phillies go on a losing streak right now. The Braves have been miserable this past week. The Mets are stacking up these wins against these teams that are not good at all, bottom of the barrel. And now they have a little bit more of a commanding lead in this division, so they have a little bit more room to work with. And that's the main reason as to why this whole playing down to competition thing is not fantastic to do, whether you win or not. What it's better to do is show that team, or show on publicly that this team is good enough to dominate teams like that. That's what they did yesterday. Game 2, they started to hit as well, and they're starting to have a little bit more efficient games. Does that have more to do, again, with the Rockies and the White Sox, and maybe the Dodgers pitching staff is a little bit banged up? Sure. But at least we're starting to see a little bit more of the consistency than what we were seeing a little bit in May, a lot in April. Just a lot of performances as the team where you think that they should have done a little bit more. And there has been plenty of one-run games that this team has lost because of the situational hitting. There's been tons of games that this team has lost because of mental errors or mental mistakes that they have made, as to where we know that this team can be better. And we already know that this team is substantially better than this Rockies team, and they were able to show it. It has absolutely nothing to do, and it always gets misconstrued with a lot of us on this show, whether it is, for me, my co-host Frank, or Andrew, that we're just constantly negative and looking for things to complain about. We're not. We're saying that this team is capable of a lot more. We believe that they're capable of a lot more. And they need to start showing it. Because these getting by of one-run wins against these terrible opponents of playing down to competition, it doesn't make you feel comfortable. It doesn't. And I don't know if it's just a boring set to play these bad teams, but there's been plenty of times where they've almost been, they've costed themselves a few games here and there that they weren't capitalizing on, and they needed to do it in this series. They did it against the Rockies this year. The Rockies are historically bad, like we said, and they've won all 6 games that they played them. They did what they needed to do. They got the job done. They did exactly the job that they were set out to do. There's plenty of things in between, things that were rough around the edges in this series, which we will get into. But first, let me get into the chat, say hi to some of you guys in here. D is coming up saying, hello, hosts and Mets fans. It's just me today, but thank you for coming in here. But other than that, let's see. D is in the chat here. We have Ibby in here saying, do you love my comments? Probably not. No Rhino. No Rhino. Not at all. For those of you in here, hit the like button if you have not already. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it these days, come on over to the YouTube stream. Because the comments come through, and we want to hear your opinions on this team as we continue to go through all of this stuff that has been going on with this team recently. So we will get into it. Let me just take a sip of water. You guys know how this works, because there's a long-winded analysis ready to come your way to run down this series. So give me 1 second. All right, we are good. Other than that, let's run down the exact events of what happened in this series. For anybody that was living under a rock, I will be sure to provide the content that you need. So let's go into the full rundown of this 3-game set in Coors Field. Game 1, Kodai Senga would make his 12th start of the year and fight through some traffic, with the only blemish on his line being a solo home run to Mickey Moniak, ending his night across 6 innings pitched, 5 hits, 1 earned run, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts on a career-high 109 pitches. The Mets offense would find themselves down 1-0 through 6 innings before they finally broke through in the 7th after back-to-back one-out singles by Starling Marte and Juan Soto, setting up, who else? Pete Alonso, who would give the Mets the lead on a 2-run double, his 56th and 57th RBIs of the year. Huskar Brazaban would get the 7th, and he'd surrender a 1-out triple to Sam Hilliard for, I think that's the second extra base hit in 2 times that he's faced him, actually. I'm pretty sure he gave up a home run to him in Citi Field. And that would be cashed in by Mickey Moniak's second home RBI of the game, this time an RBI single to tie the game up back at 2. Ryan Stanek would come in for the 8th, and he would walk the tightrope. He'd give up a leadoff single to Jordan Beck, a double to Thayo Estrada that would make it 2nd and 3rd thanks to a base-running blunder by the Rockies' third base coach. Stanek would walk Hunter Goodman to load the bases with nobody out, but Brett Beatty would save the day while playing close to the third base bag, snagging a long line drive and tagging the runner at 3rd in time for the double play. Ryan Stanek would strike out Brenton Doyle to end the inning to finish a Houdini-level escape and keep it tied at 2 going into the 9th. The Mets would get a 1-out single by Juan Soto for his 3rd hit of the game, followed by a walk to Pete Alonso. 2 out and 2 on. The Mets would call on their star shortstop, Francisco Lindor, to pinch hit with 9 fully functioning toes. Lindor would give the Mets the lead on a 2-run double to right field, raising his pinch hitting career to 3-4-8 and carrying the team on his back that almost broke it last year. Edwin Diaz would come on for the 9th and toss a 1-2-3 inning with a strikeout on 15 pitches to take game 1 of the series 4-2. Game 2. Clay Holmes would start this one, and he'd turn in another solid outing with the only notch on his day being a solo home run surrendered to Ryan McMahon in the 4th. He'd work around a decent amount of base runners with some timely ground balls all night to turn in 6 innings pitched, 9 hits, 1 earned run, no walks, 6 strikeouts on 95 pitches. The Mets would open up the scoring in the 3rd with Ronnie Mauricio's first home run back in the majors, a 456-foot moonshot to the left to the 3rd deck in right field. Jared Young would follow that up in the 5th with a solo home run of his own, his 2nd of the year. Mauricio would follow him with his 2nd hit of the game and steal second base, and Brandon Nimmo would drive him in on an RBI single to make it 3-1 Mets. Jeff McNeil would lead off the 6th inning with a solo home run, his 4th of the year, to extend the Mets lead to 4-1. And after back-to-back one-out walks to Nimmo and Soto, Pete Alonso would single to load the bases. Tyrone Taylor would make it 5-1 on a sacrifice fly, and Luis Torrens would make it 7-1 Mets on a 2-run single. Jose Butto would come in for the 7th and toss a 1-2-3 inning with 2 strikeouts. Francisco Lindor would line a 2-out single for his 3rd hit of the game, and Brandon Nimmo would knock him in from first on an RBI double to give New York a 8-1 lead. Jose Butto would come back out for the 8th and record another scoreless inning thanks to a 5-4-3 double play following a leadoff single. Jose Castillo would get the 9th and toss a 1-2-3 inning on 13 pitches to secure the series victory in Game 2, 8-1. And in Game 3, Tylor Megill would start the series finale, and after 4 no-hit innings, Megill would get roughed up in the 5th, with a big lead, they would pull him from the game. 5 innings pitched, 3 hits, 2 earned runs, 3 walks, 5 strikeouts on 82 pitches. The Mets offense would explode all game, so let's run this one down really quick. In the 2nd, Jeff McNeil, solo home run, his 5th of the year, 1-0 Mets. Francisco Alvarez, RBI single, 2-0 Mets. In the 3rd, Pete Alonso, 2-run home run, his 16th of the year, tying David Wright for 2nd all-time on the Mets all-time home run list. 4-0 Mets. Tyrone Taylor RBI double, 5-0 Mets. In the 4th, Jeff McNeil 3-run homer, his 2nd of the game, his 6th of the year, 8-0 Mets. In the 7th, Brett Beatty 2-run homer, his 7th of the year, 10-2 Mets. In the 8th, Pete Alonso 2-run homer, his 2nd of the game to pass David Wright on the all-time Mets home run list. 12-3 Mets. And finally, in the 9th, Francisco Alvarez solo home run, his 2nd of the year, to make it 13-3 Mets. Paul Blackburn would come in the long relief in the 6th to bid for the very rare 4-inning save, and he would just do that, tossing 4 innings pitched, 7 hits, 3 earned runs, one walk on 3 strikeouts, 71 pitches to finish the game and complete the sweep, 13-5. The Mets are now 42-24 on the season, winners of 8 of their last 10 and 12 of their last 15, now holding a solid 4.5-game lead over the Phillies for first place in the National League East. So again, as per usual, a lot of events to recap for this series as to what went on. Now, again, here's the thing. I'm not here to constantly give out medals for the Mets doing the job they needed to do. Okay? I know that may sound disappointing to everyone and may make me sound like a hater here, But this Rockies team is historically horrible. And like I said, anything less than a sweep is extremely disappointing. We also had in this series, the Mets still glaring issue that we've seen all year so far. The Mets ended up going 10 for 41, I think, combined in this 42. 10 for 42 in this series, which is less than a 25% success rate here with runners in scoring position. It has continued to be an issue all year. We will see how it translates into better pitching, because we saw the Rockies as a staff. They're horrible. They're basically just horrible in every single aspect. I don't know how many times I can say this, but the runners in scoring position still was somewhat of an issue. Made up for it a little bit in game 3 with that entire 13-run barrage that they had, 38% success rate. Again, I'm not asking for them to be perfect. We've talked about this before. I'm asking for them to be efficient. So, 28%, if you do that, in a game, it's an efficient game. And that was what they were able to do in that final game. But the first two, inefficient. They really did struggle to start off this series in game 1, starting off 0 for 8 with runners in scoring position. We know that we had that highlighted inning of the kids going down 1-2-3 with the bases loaded. And with runners on base, we had Brett Beatty kind of get screwed by a strike 3 called. So it's not fully on him. But again, what are you going to do when you just constantly have the umpires making inconsistent calls? Francisco Alvarez, an awful AB, a terrible AB, followed by it with Ronnie Mauricio. And it kind of did show you a little bit of an image of, what do you reach the ceiling with some of these young players that they have had so far? Some of them are one-dimensional. Some of them have a little bit more to give and have a lot more to grow as these players. But to see that type of situational hitting was not fantastic. However, they did end up recovering later in that game. Lindor, obviously, with that broken pinky toe, had to save the day for them. And the fact that had to happen against the Rockies was a little bit of a frustrating thought. You could be happy about the win, absolutely. But it's a little bit of a frustrating thought that a guy who is injured has to save this team against the Rockies. But then you go into this entire spiral into game 2 and game 3. They were finally able to put together an offensive performance that actually was somewhat efficient against such an awful pitching staff. And I am noticing right now that you're seeing parts of this lineup do a little bit better in these situations when we start to see a little bit consistency in the lineup. We've talked about Brandon Nimmo in the 2-hole. We have seen Juan Soto have a little bit more success in the 3-hole. We've also seen some of these guys at the bottom part of the lineup contribute a little bit more. Tyrone Taylor has been good recently in overall production. We have seen plenty of these games where it's not sometimes it's not even the top guys who come through for you. And I think, again, having that depth in the lineup, the overall consistency in the lineup has been very, very spotty. But again, everyone's going to have to contribute in some way. I am noticing that I made a little bit of a typo on this graphic, so I'm trying to fix it up for everyone. If you can notice what I messed up, and then you will see what I did mess up, and it will pop up right here. So give me 1 second. Okay, we fixed it. If you guys can notice what I just fixed, awesome. You're really good at Where's Waldo. Either way, plenty of great things to say about this series. Let's just say that. One thing I will say here is Starling Marte, a lot better recently, has had a really good stretch. We have talked about him in the DH position. Per value, it's still It's not great. It's not fantastic. He's been good on this road trip recently. He has started to come around and adjust to this role. That has been very impressive to see. We've also had Pete Alonso swinging a hot bat, which we will get into in a second, especially with the entire conversation around him of, it's more coming into more of a legacy thing now for Pete Alonso, and not just, what is he doing at this current moment? Because, going forward, we still don't know what the future is, even though we hope that the future is a lot longer. The pitching, I think, did it a fair enough job, of course, in this type of environment in Coors Field. Again, there still was a decent amount of base runners that probably should not have happened in this game. Tyler McGill in the 5th inning, pitching around the strike zone like he shouldn't, and he should be attacking batters because he was doing well with it for the first 4 innings. We probably wouldn't have had to call upon Blackburn to completely finish the game with 4 innings, even though his arm is stretched out to do that, which is fine. Happy that Blackburn was able to save the entire bullpen on an unnecessary game where they were winning by such a big margin. So to have another starter stacked on top of that is definitely big for the team going forward, especially with this team playing 10 games in 10 straight days, which I think, again, is a lot, very taxing on a bullpen. And you see a lot of moves going in and out. We just saw Brandon Waddell get optioned down to AAA Syracuse, even though he has pitched solidly. Justin Garza was just acquired from San Francisco for cash. He was just selected the Mets. He was just selected to the Mets active roster. They even signed Julian Merriweather, who has had some success in the big leagues, has tampered off a little bit recently. He was with the Cubs. So there are definitely pieces they're going to have to plug in with back-to-back days as to where, with pitching, you don't really know what the formula is ever going to be. I think that's really, it really is something that needs to be emphasized of how many arms by committee the Mets are going to have through some of these stretches, because they don't have a lot of these, stretches. They don't have a lot of off days. They really don't. And then they also, have a lot of innings that they do need to eat from, some guys in this bullpen that can go multiple innings. They're very, very important. We've talked about long relief and then just high leverage being the piece for that. No low leverage pieces, just long relief and high leverage guys. And that's what this bullpen's been able to take care of. We'll see how it goes in continuance down the line, because again, we will see how the Mets will do relying on a very fragile position. Will they add more depth at the deadline? We will talk a little bit more about some deadline rumors later on in this show. I just want to touch a little bit on it because it's not as close as people think it is yet. Still plenty of baseball to be played until the trade deadline. But when it comes to overall as a collaboration, of course, Francisco Lindor in that first game, a massive clutch hit when they needed it, of course. With Francisco Lindor, this is basically what you have gotten from him throughout his entire Mets career. This is a guy who wants to play for you. He is a guy who wants to show out for you. That is what he has been for his entire Mets career. And for him to have, the broken pinky toe, not play, it didn't look as painful as apparently it was, but he ended up coming back out there, getting the clutch hit. And that's what the folks would call dogging him. That's what they would call a guy that by any means would come through for you. And that's what Francisco Lindor has done for this team for a long time. And I think that, the view on him obviously had to be performance-based with the way that he was being paid, how he was the new guy in town. But I think we all know and can all establish here something that I've talked about from the very beginning, is that Francisco Lindor is an MVP caliber player. What he provides for this team is not even able to be caught on whether you're saying caught on a computer or caught on paper or caught on tallies or caught on any statistic whatsoever, what he does for this team, it transcends them to another level. And it's pretty much evident on the field when you see the presence of Francisco Lindor, of how poised of a player he is from all aspects. It really does show you that he is the leader of this team, and he constantly leads by example. And I'm happy to see Francisco Lindor produce like this. I'm happy to see Francisco Lindor come through the way that he is, because that's what the Stars do. The Stars need to come through when it matters. And when you're seeing guys like Pete Alonso, who we'll get into in a second, you're seeing pieces like, Juan Soto come through. Or no, you're not really, actually, I take that back. Juan Soto, it's been a little bit rough in those situations. But I think that, embodying trust from Mets fans, it always has to be with, where are you when the lights are the brightest? Francisco Lindor has taken the bright lights to an entirely different level, being an MVP caliber player that he is. Pete Alonso has done great on the postseason stage, and he's come through a lot this year when nobody else on this team has been, especially with runners in scoring positions, situational hitting, and just overall producing the way that he is. So when it comes to Juan Soto, we got to see him come through. And then I feel like the trust will be embodied within him from Mets fans. I think it's, again, we've talked about this being a results-based business. It always will be. I think I get that mentality into wanting seeing the guys perform and not wanting to just kind of excuse certain play because of underlying numbers. As much as I love those underlying numbers, we can't play the game on a computer. It's not possible to play a game on a computer. It's not possible to play Major League Baseball on a computer. Again, there's video games out there. Some of you, I'm sure, play those video games. But you can't do that in real life. So there still is going to have to be moments where these guys come through. And I think that's where you saw Francisco Lindor come out there, even though it's against a Rockies team that's terrible, even though it is against, an entire situation where I was willing to say, okay, sit down Lindor for the entirety of this series. Let him rest up. Let him, go back home, have the day off there, 4 days off, let him rest up. I was okay with that. If he needed it, I would have been okay with that. But seeing this guy want to play through that, obviously broken toe is not a severe injury. But for someone who, that Francisco Lindor, it takes a lot to take that guy out of the lineup. We know that he has a ridiculous pain tolerance, very high pain tolerance. We know that Francisco Lindor wants to be out there, not only for his team, but for Mets fans in general. And that basically just showed what we've known all along about Francisco Lindor, of how MVPs step up. It's not just the production. It's what he provides for this team when it matters. And that's what he has been able to do as a member of this Mets team. Because again, you can be the leader, you can be the best player on the team, but when it all comes down to it, what are you going to do in those moments? We talk about the man or the mouse type of situation. Francisco Lindor has been the man in those situations. Pete Alonso in those situations has been the man. Juan Soto in situations in his career, talking inside of the big three here, he's been the man. He's been a mouse so far as a Met. Do I think that he will be a mouse for that long? Probably not. Absolutely not. But it's all really about coming through with these situations. And like I've said, with runners in scoring position, that's a big part of it. It definitely is. And I think it comes really easy to say that. I think it comes really easy to say, what players are great by their stats or what players are great by their numbers. But there's also that little aspect of, do they have what it takes to transcend a team in that moment? Francisco Lindor has proven that for a long time. So great job by him coming off the bench. And then in those second and third games with Francisco Lindor, he didn't really have to do that much. So you didn't really have to see much from Francisco Lindor because you had other hitters in this lineup coming through, which was great to see, especially in a hitter's ballpark. You want to see them slug. Ronnie Mauricio, welcome back, kid. Welcome back. Ronnie Mauricio's been, he looked great in this series, which was, a good team to play in order to get adjusted to the major league level again. Playing the Dodgers, again, that's feeding into the fire, even though he didn't play fantastic competition because the Dodgers rotation's banged up. But again, in this situation, Ronnie Mauricio showed you exactly what he can do. And he looked good in this series so far. And I'm excited to see what he can do. Out of all the young guys, from Beatty to Alvarez to Vientos, Mauricio is always the guy who had the highest ceiling, who could provide you so many different tools, and if he develops, could provide them at such a fantastic level. Will he pan out? We don't know. But we got to wait to see. We got to wait and see. We'll see how it happens. We'll see if he plays third base, if he plays second base. Maybe he gets a little bit of reps of shortstop so Francisco Lindor can get a few days off nursing that broken toe. Who knows? But I'm excited for Mauricio. I've been excited for Mauricio. I know that a lot of people have, had their discussions about, Beatty and McNeil and Acuna, Jet Williams. Ronnie Mauricio was the guy that I was waiting for. I was willing to be patient throughout it. Now he's finally back, and we get to see what he can do. I'm waiting to see what Mauricio has done. I'm not going to completely establish him as a future piece to this team, but I'm excited to see what he can do because I know what the raw abilities are for this kid. And whether he's rough around the edges, he has those weaknesses. We do need to see a decent amount of sample of what we have in Ronnie Mauricio, especially after him coming off of the ACL tear. And for how long it took for him to recover from it. It was about 17 months, I think. 17 months it took him. So definitely a long win back. And so far, it's looking all right. He struggled to begin. I'm pretty sure he started off 0 for 12. Was struggling to even make contact. Was caught up there guessing a lot, chasing. And then he started to get used to it a little bit. Started to get used to it. I'm glad, and I'm also glad that Carlos Mendoza gave him the reins in order to figure it out at the major league level, not just see, oh, well, he's overmatched in this game. Let's sit him for 2 days. Let's sit him for 3 days. I'm glad that they stuck with it. I'm glad to see him be playing third base, especially with the strong arm that he has, a ridiculously strong arm. Like, these are tools that we know can help you win. We'll see what happens going forward, especially with Ronnie Mauricio coming up here in need because of injury, and it was not because they thought that he was ready to go. But Ronnie Mauricio coming up here for Mark Vientos. Mark Vientos, a regular spot was third base. He has definitely played himself out of the third base job defensively. Offensively, he hasn't been great. He played himself out of the job defensively, especially with how incredible Beatty has been in the hot corner. Beatty has been phenomenal defensively at third base, not just visually, but just the overall range, the decision making. There's no lack of judgment, a lack of quick judgment with him. He looks very comfortable at that third base position compared to the second base position, which I don't really like him playing. I think at this point it's third base for Brett Beatty. And if he continues to hit, then he's going to get everyday jobs at third base. But we'll see where Ronnie Mauricio comes into that formula. We'll see what happens with Acuna. Do they make a decision there? Is Vientos going to be DHing regularly? There's a lot of moving parts here for a lot of this roster. And I do think that they like having the flexibility. I liked seeing maybe there's a little bit more consistency in the lineup. I've talked about it before, where I would like to see a consistent lineup every night. But they're seeing a really big, decent amount of pieces where they have this depth of major league players. Some of them, we don't know if they're complete major league players yet, but they've shown things at the major league level. And I think that it's a really strong analysis to say that the Mets lineup can be deep when the Mets lineup can be deep when they do actually produce. And we know that they're capable of a lot more offensively. And there's the reason as to why there always feels like there's something being left on the table. And that's why it's frustrating, because I know they're capable of a lot more. I know that this team can be deep in offense. I know that this team, from all aspects, can do well from the offensive standpoint, because they have the talent to do it. They got to execute. And when you point out that they're not executing, it's holding that out as accountable. Like I said, Starling Marte has been better. Tyrone Taylor has looked really, really good. Speaking of Tyrone Taylor, again, we will get into the center field discussion a little bit, but I think you run down some of these games, and for a lot of the sequencing, we've talked about it before, the 0 and 100 with the offense. It's still there. It's still there. It still exists. But I was glad to see them not put on a nonsense performance against such a nonsense level team. And I'm hoping that the timing of this offense shows up when it needs to. Obviously, there needs to be a lead by example here. Like I said, Francisco Lindor, the way that he was able to put the team on his back with a broken toe in game 1 of this series. Juan Soto is going to have to start stepping up with runners in scoring position. He's going to have to start stepping up in situations and coming up big like we know he can. Pete Alonso, difference maker when he is playing at this level, which a level we haven't even seen before. Let's be real. And I do want to get into that. I think we can get into that right now, actually, with Pete Alonso. I want to talk about the impact and the overall feel around Pete Alonso. Because, again, a lot of this discussion is more of the offseason topic with his future with this team. We had an entirety saga last year, which I hope we don't repeat again. There's been a lot of situations with this where contracts get held out, and then the next year, if they perform, it usually is done right away. So maybe that is something that happens. But with him being represented by Scott Boras, you just never know. But either way, as for his future, let's talk about right now what we are getting from Pete Alonso, which has been production we have not seen from him pretty much for his entire career. Like, this is a different level of Pete Alonso that we are really, really starting to just see blossom into one of the best hitters in all of baseball as of right now at age 30, in the prime of his career. And I think that he was not going to let the contract year get to him twice. And I think that that's what you're really, really seeing on full display with Pete Alonso. The man's a man on a mission right now. If you're looking at his overall production right now, it is otherworldly from what we have seen all year. This is a Pete Alonso that is batting .300, showing you a really good amount of contact and a lot of loud contact. This is a different level of Pete that we have not seen for a long time. It is sustained through more than 2 months of baseball now. Average contact rates, average chase rate, which is good as compared to what he was doing last year, which he looked just completely lost out there. Bat to ball skills look better, especially with runners in scoring position, where he has slashed .352 490, 479, 732 with runners in scoring position. And in those high leverage situations of how he is coming through, of how much he has been coming through in these situations, which was not the case last year. He has a 1,130 OPS in high leverage situations. He is top 10 in NL ranks among batting average, on base percentage, slugging, home runs. He's 8th. That's the lowest that he has in any of these statistics right now. He's first in runs batted in. He's also on pace this month to break the most RBIs in an entire month span. So I'm going to guess that's 30 days by a Met. Yesterday, we saw some history be made as he passed David Wright for second all-time on the franchise home run list against the Rockies with 243. And he's now 9 away from Darryl Strawberry for the all-time record. Now, obviously, the sets, the site set, proper English for you. The site set right now is obviously for this team to win. The individual performance for Pete, it doesn't matter unless he comes through. He's come through all year. He's been one of the few that have come through all year. He's been their best hitter with runners in scoring position. Does it say much considering comparing to the rest of this team? Absolutely not. But Pete has been phenomenal. It has been phenomenal to see what Pete Alonso, we know he's capable of. And I think it got a lot misconstrued of the sour taste that was put in a lot of people's mouths from last year. When Pete Alonso re-signed with the Mets, it was more of just a sigh of relief. We're like, okay, we don't have to deal with this anymore. His entire market was so thin. It was so bad because of the performance that he had. And Pete Alonso was given a treatment of it didn't matter of what he did in his Mets career. Because personally, it didn't. It was about him showing up in his walk year. He didn't show up in his walk year. Made up for it a little bit in the postseason. We know that he has. But during the season, he was one of the worst hitters in all of baseball with runners in scoring position. Though he was a plus bat still, technically, mathematically, if you want to say that. We were seeing production that was just not, it wasn't Alonso. It was not Pete Alonso. It was a down year for him. And seeing what he is capable of on full stance, to be honest, I was not expecting him to be in the 300 range here, obviously, the 1,000 OPS range here. But the 900 OPS range, we knew that he was capable of. He's done it multiple times in his career. And to see what we are seeing from Pete Alonso right now, it's really easy to ask the question of where would they be without him? I mean, who knows where they would be, but we don't really have to imagine that. We don't really have to, because he's here right now. What will his future look like? We still don't know, and that's an off-season conversation. I'm not going to open it like that, but when it comes to the impact of what he's been able to do from this lineup, whether he is batting third or batting cleanup, he's been not only a pure cleanup hitter, but he's been the best hitter on this team all year. Does some of that have to do with the fear induced by Juan Soto? Maybe. Possible. Does it have to do with, him obviously making better swing decisions? Yes. 100%. And I really do think that the impact of Pete Alonso, this is what we were looking for last year. This is exactly what we were begging for last year. And we got very portrayed as having a personal vendetta against Pete Alonso for him asking what he wanted in free agency. Had nothing to do with that. It was about, he had to perform. And I don't think that he wanted to go into that department again. I think he experienced what it was like in free agency. It was not a fun experience for him. He signs this deal where he has a pillow, and then he got to work. I think for me, at that current moment where his market value was at, because we had to talk about this as a current market. That's how the free agent market was. I was willing to bring back Pete with open arms. I've said that so many times. But it all really had to do with the price. He wasn't going to get that big contract. He didn't play to that big contract. It wasn't going to happen. And now, things can change when you produce. And produce when it matters. And be the big run producer that you are. Pete Alonso is now lining himself up for possibly an even bigger payday than we expected he would get. Now coming off of, or on pace for, a career year, which, even though in the power department it's not on pace to the 53 home run year he had in his rookie year, it's on pace right now to be one of the most refined seasons that you've seen in Mets history. We'll see how it keeps up. Do I think that he's going to stay in that 300 range? Probably not. But it's been great to see him produce like that and maintain it so far. I think he'll stay pretty close. And then there's also this other piece of information. MVP. Does he have a case at the moment? He does. He absolutely does. The Mets are one of the best teams in all of baseball. He's putting on MVP numbers. He's at the top of his game as of right now. He's top 10 in nearly any category. He's coming through when it matters. And he definitely has a case. Do I think he will win it? Probably not. Unfortunately not. But that all really just has to do with, how they view a guy in that league as well, such as Shohei Ohtani, who will likely get it again. But he definitely has a case. Just like how Lindor had a case. But it's possible that they both get passed by Ohtani. Who knows? But to be honest, I could care less if he wins MVP. I really could. This is all really about this team winning. And when Pete Alonso is right, when Pete Alonso is coming through, when Pete Alonso is doing what he is doing right now, this team is on a different level. Not just offensively, but just in overall production. Because Pete Alonso can be that game-changing bat when he's at his best. We've seen some bad recently, especially these last 2 years beforehand. And now, he's been able to flip the script, which is good. Heber Hammer coming in here saying that they should offer him an extension now before he hits the open market, and then he becomes too expensive for the Mets. I would not worry about him being too expensive for the Mets, only because they have a little bit of money coming off of the books for next offseason. And realistically, when it comes to Pete Alonso's contract, not going to happen. It's not going to happen it's not going to happen during the season. You're going to have to wait. That's just how it is with him being represented by Scott Boras. And obviously, not making it a distraction now makes sense, of course, with the team in the winning ways, looking to compete. Pete Alonso's money's going to have to wait. Obviously, and he probably could have gotten that money last year if he, performed to that standard we know that he's capable of. Now we're at a completely different situation where, as he continues to hit like this, are we I think we're all like in agreement where if he does continue to hit like this, and it has sustained, could he be wearing another uniform ever again? Can anybody see him wearing another uniform? Because, again, I've been rooting for him to do his thing, to be Pete Alonso. He's being Pete Alonso and even more right now. And when you put together what he has obviously done in his career here, it's so evident, very, very evident, that I don't see a window where the Mets let him go. And it all really had to depend on the situation. Right now, Pete Alonso has produced at a level that we haven't seen him do at an age 30 season. I think questions do need to be answered about the legacy of Pete Alonso's Mets career. Of how do we see this ending? You know, does it end with him leaving like Jacob deGrom? Does it end with heartbreak like David Wright? Or do we finally get that, fairy tale ending that we've been looking for from a player who was homegrown from the very beginning and retires a Met? Could Pete Alonso be that guy? I sure hope so. I would love for him to produce like this for the rest of his career and continuing to get better into his 30s. Absolutely. Because the Mets would be in good shape if that happened. And what we are seeing right now from Pete Alonso is obviously the Mets have really never had that homegrown hitter be this, I don't want to say transcended, but this prolific of a talent. We know that David Wright was here, Jose Reyes and guys like that. But Pete Alonso, from the very beginning, has been a prolific power hitter. For him to add on what he's been able to add on this year, it just adds in a bonus. And it doesn't worry me about price because we know that the financial flexibility of this team, it's not something that they're going to worry about price. But there had to be a merit to give him to that certain price. And for right now, he is running himself up a massive check in the offseason, which has been huge. And I think when you do go to a certain area, we're on pace right now where Pete Alonso, when it's all said and done, could possibly be the best position player in Mets history. All depends on if they win anything. Depends on if he, plays longer than Wright. But we're looking at a point where he's breaking records. He just passed David Wright for home runs. He sticks around, he's going to get the runs batted in title by a huge margin towards the end of his career. And he's been on a fantastic pace. I think that right now, these questions do need to be answered or thought about with the future of Pete Alonso, of how they put this entire thing together. Lindor being here long term, Soto here even longer. Last piece here is Pete. And he's going to have to prove it in order to get that contract. And so far, He's running up quite a tab. He is. He really is. And overall, this is the best I've seen Pete Alonso for a long time, since the 2019 Juice Ball game, guys. Now, obviously, that 50 home runs, that he had, is it repeatable? Who knows? Especially with the amount of pitches he gets in the zone. I don't know if it's possible. We'll see. There's plenty of questions you can come in here. How could that not worry you? We almost let him walk last season. Because if the Mets want him, they'll keep him. Last year, he didn't give us a reason to go all out for him. 2024, that wasn't his year. This is the worst year of his career. So to establish one thing and then move on to the other, that was very possible. I don't think that after Pete Alonso, the year that he is having, that he is on pace for right now, I don't think that the Mets are going to do a lot of this seesaw that they did last offseason. I don't think you have to worry that much. It's all about if they want him or not. The Mets wanted him last offseason, or this offseason, but they wanted him on a certain price. And it made sense. Now at the moment, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I don't think that there is going to be a team to outbid them for Pete Alonso, because again, this is a position that usually does not get paid as much. Unless you're Vladimir Guerrero Jr., who's only 25 or 26 right now. Different situation. But Pete Alonso going into his 30s. Different situation. And we know that he's not the player that Freddie Freeman is. So Freddie Freeman's contract is a little bit off of that balance there. But he definitely is going to get a lot of money in free agency. He's definitely going to get a lot of money. D saying one man does not make the team. Ibrahim is saying, yes, one man does not make the team, but do you think the Mets would be here where they are right now in first place without him? Probably not. Probably not. But however, I don't think that there was an expectation for him to produce like this. I think there was an expectation that he was going to be better than 2024. But for him to put up these type of numbers, I don't think really anybody had that coming. Whether it is the Juan Soto effect or not, I don't think anybody had the expectation that Pete Alonso would be contending for the MVP and be top 10 in nearly every category. Because we've seen throughout his career, he has weaknesses. We know he does. He's not a perfect player. So it's hard to say that Pete Alonso is the main reason why this team is in this position. He's one of the reasons. But, however, he's made a fantastic impact. He's made an incredible impact. I think I'm selling him short there. He's been incredible. However, the situation at hand. The situation at hand here is he's represented by Scott Boras. So no extension is coming anytime soon. But with the Mets, with how it has been publicly displayed, from Steve Cohen to the very top to the very bottom, I don't see a situation where he ends up going somewhere else. If he keeps playing like this. It's all about producing if you want to stay. Guys like Brandon Nimmo in his walk year, he produced. Guys like Michael Conforto didn't produce. Gone. So again, there's pieces in free agency. You gotta produce in your walk year. And we all know that Pete, at the rate that he's going, he's definitely going to opt out of this contract. I hope you're right, Carson. I really do, because I don't want to see him as a Yankee to finish his career. I wouldn't worry about it. I would not worry about it. My main worry as of right now is the team continuing to win. We will get to that bridge when we cross it. But as of right now, that bridge is not here. We'll see if the future holds for something. And he's 30 years old, which is usually around half of a guy's career. Another question that you can ask: is Pete Alonso destined for the 500 home run club? Could he be? I mean, he's about to hit 250. I think we can answer a lot of questions as this pivotal point of we don't know his future, but he's producing at such a high level. So what will be the future for him? We'll see what that is. But again, the impact that he's had is 100% noticeable, and at a ridiculous level of notice for what we have seen from him. Either way, speaking of impact, I don't want to spend forever on this topic because it's not trade season yet. We're close to it, but we're not there yet. I want to talk about some of the reports that have come out recently about this entirety of this team going out on the deadline and trying to improve the lineup in regards to whether it is at the expense of some of these young players. Center field has been something that has been discussed recently. And there's been plenty of different pieces that have been discussed. And there has been two that have been recently. Duran of the Boston Red Sox and Cedric Mullins of the Baltimore Orioles. These are two teams that could be expected to move some parts, whether they are competing or not. There's more of a different situation now with guys like Duran, but I will get into it here, of the Mets searching up the middle. Now, here are some quotes that we got from Jon Heyman and Jeff Passan, two different pieces for center field, same position. Jon Heyman said that would the Red Sox trade one of their outfielders to the Mets? I mean, because you have Roman Anthony, who actually just got called up today, so congratulations to him, who is the best prospect in all of baseball. He looks pretty ready to me. But I'm just saying, looking at the stat sheet, I think Duran is out there, and I think the Mets would talk about him. Now, that was Jon Heyman on the New York Post Baseball podcast. We also had an article come out from Jeff Passan with trade season approaching of one guy who he would link them to of the best fit. And that guy was Cedric Mullins for the Mets, saying Mullins is one of the Orioles' lone bright spots this season. And as solid as Tyrone Taylor has been in center, Mullins' bat is significantly better, and his glove, though admittedly lesser than Taylor's, is perfectly acceptable. Now, for these two situations, you have Duran, who is 28 years old, and he has control through 2028. He just came off of his best season. This year, he definitely has not been the guy from last year, but he still has been productive. We know what he can provide as a player, especially up the middle. We'll see what his playing time is in the Red Sox uniform going forward. And then there's Mullins, who is going to be a free agent at the end of this year, so it will most likely be a rental. So you have more of a control piece up the middle you can move Tyrone Taylor to the bench, or you have Cedric Mullins, who could be cheaper, but a rental. So we'll see how they would address this up the middle, because we know that David Stearns values defense up the middle. One of the main reasons why Tyrone Taylor was brought in here. One of the main reasons why Jose Siri was traded for. Drew Gilbert has slowed down a little bit in AAA, so if you think that he's in the equation at the moment, probably isn't. Most likely isn't. But when it comes to Jarren Duran or Cedric Mullins, I asked you guys in the chat here, it seems like it's pretty split up here of which center field target you'd prefer. Duran is in the lead at 42%. Luis Robert, who we've already talked about, is second place, and Cedric Mullins is third place with 27%, excuse me. So make sure to vote on the poll if you have not already. If you're watching, again, on Twitter right now, I advise you to come over to YouTube because the comments come through a lot quicker and a lot more consistent. But here is the deal here. I think you have three talented players as possibility here that can easily contribute to your lineup. You plug in their numbers to this lineup. You plug in what they're able to do. You plug in their tools. You can definitely find something there. However, what will be the impact on this team when they come over to the Mets? Because I don't think that this is talked about as much. We've talked about the Mets as a piece to this team where, yes, on the outside, these guys can be good players, but are they the best fit for this team? And that is one thing that I feel like is a factor with the Mets specifically, because of how fragile the situation can be in New York on the New York stage. Cedric Mullins has never been in a big market before. He'll be playing for a contract when you trade for him. That's something that you need to consider. However, Cedric Mullins is a piece that can cover a lot of ground in center field. And he definitely has a very productive bat too. Luis Robert, he's struggled recently, and he hasn't really been able to get back to that production, even though he has showed a lot of his tools on display. I'm pretty sure he leads the league in stolen bases right now, which is good. This team needs speed. Cedric Mullins right now is having a really good year at the plate. Is a 121 weighted runs created plus, OPS over 700. So the offense is definitely there. He's walking the most he's ever in his career. He also can give you 20 home run power. So that definitely is somebody you could go after. Jarren Duran. He's in Boston. He's coming off of a year that was good. That was fantastic, actually. 2024 All-Star. This year, he's kind of tampered off a little bit, but he still is producing. 105 weighted runs created plus. Still on pace to be a 3 to 4 win player. Not someone who walks that much. Strikes out a little bit. But he also is really good situationally. Something that we have not seen that much from this Mets team. There's definitely needs here. Duran's defense is definitely tampered off a little bit. But there is one factor I want to put in here. And I think it is being ignored. That needs to be considered. I don't think that this is a deal breaker. But we know that Jarren Duran has been public. He has been public recently about his mental health. He has been public about some things that have gone in his life, some of his personal issues that have gone on the field that have kind of kept him from focusing on baseball. Which, listen, it's heartbreaking. It really is. It's heartbreaking to see, hear somebody go through that, what he did. However, in this certain context of New York, this is not a place to go through that type of thing. To not go through this type of, those type of mental health issues. Some of these guys just don't, they don't fare well in these big markets. They don't do well in these big markets because of the eyes that are on them. And that's what you're going to get in New York. However, the Mets have a lot of star power where, guys can be protected in this lineup and they don't need to do fantastic. However, again, is it a recipe for success? Who knows? Who knows? And I do like Duran. I think he's a really solid player. And I think that he could help this lineup. However, all the factors in account here. Is this the best place for him to go, given the history, given what we have seen from him, or what we have heard from him about the mental aspect of the game affecting him off the field? It could be something to consider. Do I think that that's a deal breaker? Absolutely not. Would I would welcome him in with open arms? Absolutely. Because I think he's got a lot of talent. However, there is a thought process of, is this a task that he'd be willing to take on or be able to take on? So we'll see how that context goes out. We don't know what the entire situation is. We don't know what the Mets are looking for in the deadline. But there is a lot to go by here where there's a lot of talent. There is a lot of talent with a guy like Duran, but there's also that other factor of how's it going to translate to New York, of the pressure in New York. And from what we've seen publicly from him, it's something to consider. Luis Robert is another one where there's been work ethic reports about him. He's been in Chicago where basically nobody cares. So, again, there are pros and cons to bringing in pieces like this. Or Tyrone Taylor has been fantastic as well in center field. Can't say he hasn't been. He hasn't been to the level of hitter that any of these guys listed at any point of their careers. It's really just all about how it blends in together. Now, Duran, if he were to come here, I would love to see what he can do here. I think he's a good player, but there are things that you do need to consider. And that being, is it a good fit? So we'll see. Tyrone Taylor is a piece to this team that has helped them win ball games in the margins. Because Truman is saying, Tyrone Taylor will finish the year at 220. Which, again, I don't expect Tyrone Taylor to hit. Tyrone Taylor, he can strike out 4 times, and he still can contribute to the team with what he does on the base pass and defense or whatever. Whatever he does, he contributes to a winning team. And that's what I think his value is to this team. And if you want to do an upgrade up the middle, by all means. If you want to move Tyrone Taylor to the 4th outfielder that we expected him to be going into this season, go ahead. Absolutely. I'd be full on... I'd be full on motivated for it. I think, given the situation, I would prefer I would prefer to go with Cedric Mullins because I feel like it's a little bit more cheaper, a little bit more efficient. You also get a little bit more two-way game here. I would go there, personally. Has nothing to do with what's going on with Duran. I just think it's a better fit because he's, someone who can provide a little bit more, not just in the margins, but intangible wise. We also need somebody who doesn't make mental mistakes. I think Robert is a risk, like some of you guys are saying in the chat. I think Duran is a risk from different aspects, too. I think all of them are considered a risk. I think that the safest bet is Cedric Mullins. The most dangerous bet here is probably Luis Robert Jr. And then in between, pointing a little bit more towards Luis Robert Jr. would be Jarren Duran. It has absolutely nothing to do with their production, and I want to make that abundantly clear. It's more of just the fit from what you're getting from some of either the young guys or the veteran, like Cedric Mullins. Either way, if they were to trade for any of these guys, I wouldn't be opposed to it. Would not be. Does that mean that maybe, like Hebrew is saying, what the hell are they waiting for with Drew Gilbert? He's 24 years old. Could that mean that targets like these, could that mean that Drew Gilbert's on his way out? Because we've said this before. This was something that we saw in the Luis Robert talks a few weeks ago. I talked about this on the show, where it's very, very possible that maybe the asking price will be Drew Gilbert. And he will be the casualty here if they were to trade up the middle. Because in context with this team, you got Nimmo locked down in left field for years to come. You got Soto locked down in right field. And again, it's hard to tell. I definitely understand the hesitance. Willing to deal or deal for. Heber Hammer also saying if there's any chance with center fielder, why not try and trade for Byron Buxton? Here's the thing. There's a few things going on with Byron Buxton. I think we all can agree give you some limits. It's very possible that maybe Buxton does get moved, but I don't think it's going to be. Now, I think that the Twins are still seeing themselves as competitors, which is fine. Buxton, another thing here. Lots of injuries. A lot. Which has really held him back from being what we expect him to be. And I think that's also one of the factors that I think a lot of people back away from. Because Buxton's hella talented. He's very talented. He's one of the most talented guys in the league. From all aspects. 5-tool player right there. And he's having another great season. However, there's some concerns. I also don't think that the Twins are going to be willing to move him, especially with them being in contention. I'm pretty sure they're in the second or first wild card spot right now. But also with that bargain of a contract that he signed, which is like $15 million a year through 2028. So I don't think that that's very possible. But either way, there are directions that they can look. We'll see what happens there. I didn't want to go fully in depth on this, especially with my partner Andrew not here, because trade season is his season. But however, there is some things that you do need to consider with how you build this across. And especially with Tyrone Taylor producing the way that he has, where he has been a contributor for pretty much the entirety of the season. The types of guys that could help you win in the margins. That's Tyrone Taylor. And whatever they figure out with some of these young guys, whether it is Beatty or Mauricio or Vientos or even guys Gilbert or pieces like that, we'll see. We need a solid 280, 32 home runs, 90 RBIs. That sounds like Lindor. You need another one of those? Then I get it. I get what you mean. But we'll see. We'll see what they do when it comes to the trade deadline. We'll see how they address the outfield. The infield has gotten a lot crowded, a lot more crowded. He's going to get even more crowded when you have somebody like Vientos coming back. We'll see who is going to be the trade chips, because I think at the rate we're going, this is just my impression, at the rate we're going, I think the Mets are going to buy at the trade deadline. And I know that's a hot take, but I think that they're going to try to compete. I think we might have a little bit harder of a buy from last year. Vientos won't be sent down for a rehab assignment. We'll figure out what happens with Vientos. And speaking of rehab assignments, I actually do want to get into the injury report, so thank you for that reminder. We'll see what happens with Vientos. I think he is going to have a rehab assignment. It's very, very possible. They said 10 to 14 games he's going to receive treatment. So we'll see how that is responded to. But I would like to see him get a rehab assignment, especially with a hamstring strain. Definitely not a injury that is fantastic to go through. But speaking of injuries, let's get into the injury report. Frank's not here, obviously, like I said, so I'm going to have to fill in for him. And here it is for the main of these last few days. Mets starting pitcher Frankie Montas made his fourth rehab start for AAA Syracuse yesterday, tossing 3 2/3 innings, 4 hits, 3 earned runs, 3 walks, 2 strikeouts on 76 pitches. Mets manager Carlos Mendoza confirmed that they're still undecided on how many rehab appearances he will make, as it all refers to how he feels in recovery between outings. The 32-year-old right-hander has been sidelined since the first week of spring training due to a right lat strain. The Mets starting pitcher Sean Manaea made his first rehab appearance for High A Brooklyn on Friday, tossing an inning and 2/3, 4 hits, 3 earned runs, 0 walks, 2 strikeouts on 36 pitches. Mets manager Carlos Mendoza stated that the 33-year-old southpaw is set to make his second rehab appearance tomorrow or Wednesday for Brooklyn as they see how the next couple of days go. Manaea has been on the injured list since the beginning of March due to a right oblique strain that he suffered in the first week of camp. Mets infield prospect Jet Williams exited Friday night's game for AA Binghamton in the first inning after being struck near the ear flap of his batting helmet with a 98-mile-an-hour fastball. After further testing, Williams avoided any concussion symptoms and returned to the Binghamton lineup on Saturday afternoon. So a little bit of a injury scare for Jet Williams, who has been off to a really good start in Binghamton. Yes, injury report without Onk. Sorry. Timing sucks, doesn't it? But either way, little touch up here. Montas, it's been a struggle for him so far. I think we can all agree that it has not been a great performance so far for his rehab. I'm trying not to completely freak out about it. However, we're seeing him give up a lot of home runs. I'm pretty sure he's given up like 8 home runs in 3 rehab starts, which is not great. Not great. Not fantastic. But we'll see how this etches out. And if he does not end up working out, it's whatever. David Stearns can't be right on every single one of them. Every single one of them. Sean Manaea Good to see him back there out on the mound. Hopefully he gets into a little bit of a rhythm. Obviously a big contributor last year, and it definitely can help this rotation out the way that we expected him to do when he re-signed with the team this offseason. And as long as they keep it slow, because obviously the Mets pitching has been great recently, so there's no rush. We'll see how it all concludes, how they configure these things. We know that Paul Blackburn just came back from injury. Looks like he's taking a little bit more of a what was it? What the hell was I saying? What did I say? I don't know what I was saying. I just lost my entire train of thought. Wow. Hopefully that's the only time that happens. But hey, it's whatever. There's some other comments in here that I do want to address here. But we'll see what happens with some of these guys going forward. Long relief role. There you go. Thank you. A long relief role for Paul Blackburn, and there's some guys in this bullpen that could be on their way out. And we know that Brooks Raley is starting to rehab his way back too. This is a good problem to have. Definitely deep in the 40-man roster, all good. To have all hands on deck is very, very important, and we will see. So Jet Williams, good to see that he's okay after that scary moment that happened. High up and in, 90-mile-an-hour fastball. Definitely not an ideal situation for anybody. I think everybody sees their life flash before their eyes when that happens. But he was back in the lineup. He's fine. They wear helmets for a reason, and that's good. But yeah, either way, I do want to get into a segment that everybody loves. Let's get into studs and duds. One player in this series that was fantastic, one that was not, and we want to hold accountable in this situation. Obviously, coming off of a sweep, plenty of great performances. For my stud, there's plenty of candidates. We know Pete Alonso breaking the record, we know Pete Alonso passing David Wright for the all-time second on the franchise. He is definitely going to be on that list, of course. Ronnie Mauricio had a good series, but, however, take your cameras out, because I'm going to give the stud of this series to Jeff McNeil. And the main reason as to why I'm saying this is because we are starting to see a Jeff McNeil that is producing at a very different way in his career compared to what he has done throughout his career right now. It has been an age-old story, and it's become true for years, since his very beginning, that he has not been able to be a plus bat without batting .300. He did not walk enough. He didn't hit for any sort of power. So he wasn't able to produce unless he batted .300. And that's been kind of the slip that he has had recently. However, this year, we're seeing him pull a little more of line drives, which is one thing that he does at his best. He's not hitting anywhere close to .300 this year. And right now he's on pace for one of the best years of his career. He's slugging more. He's walking the most out of his entire career. And he has a career low in strikeout rate. However, there are still things rough around the edges. We know I'll always have my thoughts on Jeff McNeil. However, 4 home runs in this series. I think he had 5 extra base hits. He produced at pretty much every single AB that he had. And again, one of the main reasons as to why this team was able to explode on this Rockies team like they should have. Putting up a 13 spot, hit 2 home runs in the game last game behind Alonso. You have him on pace for over 20 homers this year as of right now. Obviously, I don't know if he's going to get there because he came back late, but he's been a productive bat. And that's what we know, that at his best, he can be that productive bat. However, this has been a Jeff McNeil that we haven't seen before, where he needs to bat 300 in order to be productive. He's not doing that this year. Instead, he's kind of shifting that over to his on-base percentage. And then when he sees a pitch in the zone, he's able to crush it, which is a good balance of a hitter that we haven't seen before from Jeff McNeil. How long will it keep up? Who knows? But it's good to see him build off of the good second half he had before he got injured. So either way, this was a really good performance from Jeff McNeil. He's one of the reasons as to why this offense could get going in this series against a Rockies team, but he still was able to get going. So hats off to Jeff McNeil. A great series from him. Individually, he was fantastic. Let's hope to see him keep it going. Because again, if he were to start hitting, if some of the young kids were to start hitting, the lineup gets deep. And I know that a lot of people had their sights set on the great little stretch that Luisangel Acuna had last year for him to take his job. I'm not big on Acuna, so that wasn't one of my situations. So I wasn't pushing for that. It was more of just the second base position in general. But again, a phenomenal series from Jeff McNeil. And he was 100% the stud of this series. Even though there were plenty of other guys you can put in there for different types of moments, McNeil had a great series. He was fantastic. So I'm sorry for the surprise, and I know history being made, but I'm sorry that I'm always the McNeil enemy. However, I'm going to give credit where it's due. Not on Twitter, but I am going to give credit where it's due. On Twitter, I like to have fun. And that's the thing. I listen, I say what I need to say on here as objectively as I can. And when I hear the constant, character that I get put under, it just shows me that it shows me that these people don't watch my show. So, hey, if you want to hear me give Jeff McNeil credit, if you want me to hear him get praise, come on here. Come on in here. We're live after every single series. Hit the like button if you have not already, if you're in here. That'd be greatly appreciated. So a great series from Jeff McNeil. Hopefully it continues. We'll see if the power continues. I would like to see him start to do well with runners in scoring position again. That would be nice. But however, can't deny the performance that he had. He was on fire in Colorado, which is usually, cool, right? High altitude. I don't know. Not a geographer. Whatever. Yes. He was definitely wearing a right. All right. Anyways. Into the dud category. I feel like we had some guys have good games. We had some really bad games from certain guys. I think In a game of adjustments, I think I have to put Huskar Brazaban in here because Sam Hilliard got to him again. And with the team not hitting, I don't want to put the weight, obviously, on the bullpen because, again, they've gone through so many, so much high-pressure situations. But I think Brazaban was a piece that did not pitch well, even though it was only one game. I'm going to put Brazaban in this category. There wasn't really many. If you want to talk about it underlying, there were some good ABs and there were some bad ABs from the young kids in this series. But it's either very, very high or very, very low. So a pure dud, I would say Brazaban would be in that category. McNeil just for trolling in that fifth inning. Very, very, very possible. Yeah. You're playing the Colorado Rockies. Throw strikes, dude. Just throw strikes. Sometimes I wonder if McGill is a serious human being sometimes. And I ask that out of love. I really do. Either way, moving on from this series and into the next, which will start tomorrow against the Washington Nationals, who have played a little bit better recently. They're in third place in the National League East. And when we get into this matchup here, obviously the Mets are going back home. We know that the Mets season started to take the hardest turn so far when they played the Nationals in D.C., where I'm pretty sure Minter got hurt. We had 2 bullpen collapses. And now the Nationals are a little bit better than they were at that current moment. So again, we'll see what this matchup brings. They are not the Colorado Rockies. They are not the Chicago White Sox. So the Washington Nationals, we know about their young talent. And we know what to expect with this team. And hopefully the Mets can execute properly. Now, however, as for what's going on the mound, let's go to the pitching probables for this series. Griffin Canning will be getting the series opener, looking to continue his fantastic 2025 campaign, and he will face the young stud left-hander Mackenzie Gore. First pitch will be tomorrow at 7:10 Eastern Time on SNY. Game 2, David Peterson will make his 13th start of the year. He'll face 28-year-old right-hander Jake Irving. First pitch will be Wednesday at 7:10 p.m. Eastern Time on SNY, just like the first game. And the series finale will go to Kodai Senga, looking to continue his dominant start to the season. And he'll go up against former Braves right-hander Michael Soroka. First pitch for that game will be Thursday at 1:10 p.m. Eastern Time. So obviously there's plenty to look out for this Nationals team. Now, you look at this team on paper, they have a lot of young talent. We know that they do. And we've already discussed how good that they possibly could be in the future. Are they there yet? Probably not. Do they need a few pieces? Probably. But we all know that in overall performance, James Wood is blossoming into a star in this game. C.J. Abrams, stellar part at shortstop, of course. I know that they also have Alex Call in their outfield, who's a great defender, has been playing part-time. Their pitching staff, of course, like we said, Mackenzie Gore, one to look out for as a possible all-star candidate, maybe someone who contends for the Cy Young down the stretch of the season. He's had a great year. Jake Irving has quite a history with the Mets. I'm pretty sure he shut us down a lot, so maybe they can get revenge there. And then Soroka, who the Mets were interested in during the offseason. And it ended up not happening. They were attached to him. He's had a little bit of had a solid go at it. He's been coming back from injury. And then, of course, their bullpen, which has been one of the worst in all of baseball. They've made a lot of changes. They DFA'd Jorge Lopez pretty much on the same day that we did it last year. So keep Grimace away from him, I guess. But either way, as a team, we know that this Nationals team is beatable. The Mets can match up against them fairly well. And we know that they had an opportunity to sweep that 4-game set the last time that they played. The Mets have been phenomenal at home this year. I'm pretty sure they're like, if somebody can tell me their home record, that would be very, very nice. But however, on this Nationals team, there's plenty of young talent, like I said. I'm pretty sure Dylan Cruz is out. He has a strained oblique. They have Andrew Chafin, guy who is connected to the Mets for a long time in that bullpen. Kyle Finnegan, their top guy. I'm pretty sure he's stepped up recently for them. Obviously being their closer out of that bullpen. He's been really solid. And then you have the rest of this bullpen that has been definitely in a nightmare. You're seeing a lot of 10 earned run averages. You're seeing a lot of blown saves from this bullpen, which I think leads the league in blown saves, if I am not mistaken. So again, there's weaknesses on this team. Attack the hitters you want to attack. Try to expand the zone. Take advantage of the inexperience. And they should be good to go. Yes, the Nationals. Okay. Yes, the Nationals have been one of the worst bullpens. Guys to look out for, of course, Pete Alonso is on an absolute heater right now. We'll see if Jeff McNeil can build on what he did in Colorado and over these last 10 games, which he's actually contributed fairly well. We'll see what we get from Francisco Lindor, still something to monitor with the broken toe. And, of course, Juan Soto. Where's that signature moment going to come from? We'll see. God, I hope so. I hope we get it. It would be awesome. Obviously, playing the matchups. We'll see what happens against the left-hander. Will Starling Marte get a little bit more playing time? Probably. Odd Villain saying I'll be at the stadium on Wednesday. Mets are 24-7 at home. Yes. Okay. Truman Quinn saying it's fun to watch shit teams because you can shop for their players. That was something we did for Jesse Winker last year. I know a lot of Mets fans wanted Jesse Winker, and they acquired him. So again, lots to look out for in this upcoming series. I'm hoping that we get a little bit more of the situational baseball and improve on it. Because so far in June, they're batting .275 with runners in scoring position. They've done better. Let's hopefully see them build on it, especially against these situations with a Nationals bullpen that has struggled a lot this year. So I am expecting them to win 2 out of 3. They can sweep this series. It's very possible. But we'll see what happens. And hopefully they can continue their dominant play that they have had at home. Like we said, 24-7 at Citi Field this year. So hopefully that continues. And this June play, I want to see this June play continue because they have definitely done better offensively in June. And against some really good pitchers as well. So we'll see how we can preview that up. Now, obviously, we're not going to go the full 2 hours here because it's just me here, okay? And I'm not going to completely talk my you know, talk my throat into, talk my vocal cords off into having a sore throat. There's proper English. So again, we're going to go into the chat here for some of your questions that we did not get into. Saying, talk about DeGrom coming back. I don't know if you mean coming back to the Mets or coming back in general, but it's nice to see him back on the mound. If we're talking about acquiring him at the deadline, I don't see that happening. I don't think that's a possibility. Any Mets fans that are putting that in their heads, you're going to be disappointed, most likely. I don't see that happening at all. Not just the mindset of David Stearns. I don't think that Jake wants to come back, personally. I don't think he has anything against the Mets, but I don't think that he is in ideal to come back to New York. Maybe when that contract is done, he comes back, but I don't see that happening. I don't see that happening now. It's fun to play. It's fun to play pretend, but sadly it won't happen, as Evan is saying here in the chat, which is very, very true. Playing pretend can be a very dangerous game. Now, there were some talks about some stuff in the chat, obviously. Let's see. There was one thing in the chat that I'm trying to find here. My bad. Oh, here we go. ACJ saying, logjam in the infield. Acuna needs to learn how to play center field. Again, it's really just all about how they're valuing these guys in utility. I don't know if Acuna is the best fit for center field because he's a little bit short for center field. But again, I don't know if we'll see if the arm regards. Again, the only reason he would be out there in center field is because of how good of an athlete he is. However, when you look at his bat right now and how much he has been struggling, could that be with the lack of playing time? Yes. But when you look at his bat is struggling, I don't think putting his bat in the lineup is a necessity right now. And right now he is coming off the bench. So again, there are a few other topics in here that I do want to address. There were a few that I forgot to star. So my bad. Truman Quinn saying the Braves might be sellers at the pace they're going. It has been rough for him. Very, very rough. Not fun. Let's just say that. Stoney coming through. Haven't seen Stoney in a while, so shout out to you. Shout out to everybody in here. Make sure to hit the like button if you have not already. We've got plenty of you guys in here and not that many likes. So if you're watching right now, hit the like button. That would be greatly appreciated. Shout out to everybody in here. Came through on an off day to talk some Mets. So we will see what the deal is. Ricardo saying Duran is that guy for me. We were talking about some center field trade options. Duran was one that was brought up. Mullins just for a little bit of a catch up. Hebrew Hammer saying Benj is the future center fielder. Listen, I've talked about this before. I've been very, very vocal of how I don't want to plug guys in to the franchise and start planning their endorsements and planning their entire career and playing their agent. I think Carson Benj is a very talented hitter. I think he's a talented player. I think he's got all the tools. We'll see how he does in the upper levels before we start seeing him as a future piece. But so far, he's been very, very impressive at the high A level to start off his minor league career. And it is starting to look like a pick that they nailed in the first round last year. And, as the left-handed bat, we know he has that quick swing inside. He's very quick to get to the ball. He walks a lot, does not strike out, puts bat to ball a lot, and gets a lot of extra base hits as well. We'll see how the power starts to come in. He hasn't really brought in that much of the power, but he's shown a decent amount of it. He is 22, So there's going to be some pivotal years over these next few years, but I do want to see him at the higher levels before we start talking about Carson Bench as a future piece to this team. And then also he has kind of a stupid first name, which might be something that might contribute to him not contributing. Very dumb first name. Who names their kid Carson? It's ridiculous. Stanley in here saying hi. Absolutely. Hebrew Hammer. Jeez. Just said, just stick McNeil in center field and let Acuna be the everyday second baseman. He's the best defensive player on the team. Acuna, the best defensive player on the team. If he is the best defensive player on the team, then that's probably an issue, to be honest, because usually your best defender doesn't go at second base. And you're kind of limiting him a little bit. McNeil in center field is whatever. He's been serviceable enough in there, but we'll see. Brooks Raley had his first live bullpen the other day. How do you think he'll impact the team? I think after the All-Star break is when we will know what the update is going to be on Brooks Raley. They're gonna take it slow. They are gonna take it slow. So what about Siri in center field when he returns from the IL? I think everybody's ready to designate Siri for assignment. I think every fan hates what he was doing at the plate. I'm not someone who, is ready to toss him out completely, but that's another piece to the puzzle of, he's been recovering quick. We haven't really heard an update the last few weeks, but we'll see what happens. We will see what happens with how they configure this thing, because they have plenty of major league options. And again, this is a good problem to have. It is a good problem to have, where you have good players in AAA, or you have good players on your 40-man roster, and not guys who just come out of nowhere and are here because there's injury. When Siri returns, they'll send Acuna down. Very possible. Very, very possible. And we'll see what happens with Ronnie Mauricio when somebody like Mark Vientos comes back. So we'll see. We will see how all of this pans out. This is all really just a show that's being put on for us. And it's definitely a good problem to have of all of these talented players here. And moving things in and out. Speaking of the young guys, I did ask you guys on Twitter to rank the big four: Beatty, Mauricio, Alvarez, Vientos. And we got a lot of different responses. A lot. And I mean a lot. A lot of people a little bullish on Ronnie from what they've seen these last few days, which again, very exciting to see what he's done. A lot of people disregarding Alvarez a lot, who we forget hit 25 home runs as a rookie, but has struggled recently. So that's very possible. Mark Vientos so far has shown the most. I'm seeing a lot of people, talk about his lack of versatility. Makes sense. Beatty, it's been in and out for him. We know. We'll see. Vientos looks cooked. I'm not ready to completely rule him out yet. I think that it's a little too easy to panic right now. But again, he's had a rough go at it this year. I think it's very easy. We can all agree that he's had a rough go. Abraham are saying Vientos, Mauricio, Alvarez, Beatty. And some people were saying like it could change every day. And I understand that, because they've all had their good their good moments and their bad. So again, as Alvarez hand gets healthy, his power will slowly return. Boy, I hope so. I hope so. Because of what we were advertised, it's definitely been a little underwhelming recently. And I think we all can agree that Alvarez has not performed up to that expectation that we expected of that middle of the lineup type of catcher that is very rare in this game. But, that lower third of the order has been kind of what he has been contributing as. And hopefully he gets to it. He's still young. We'll see. But other than that, I think we are going to end it off here. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. It's just me today. So I hope that I fulfilled your need to talk about Mets on an off day without my co-host here. Sorry. But for those of you watching or listening on playback, you want to join the conversation in the future, make sure to subscribe to the Mets Weekly YouTube channel and turn on those post notifications to know when we go live. Also, make sure to follow Mets Weekly on X and on TikTok, which includes my co-host Frank, his post-game reactions after every single regular season game. Follow all of us individually, including my co-hosts who are not here. It's just me. Follow all of us individually, like I said. And of course, going back home for a 6-game homestand against the Nats and the Rays. Hopefully the Mets can continue these winning times going. Off day today, and they continue on tomorrow in this long grind known as a baseball season. So once again, let's go Mets. Make sure to like the stream if you have not already. Turn on post notifications for a lot of you that are in here right here. And let's go Mets. We will see you guys next time.